Today, we're going to look past the usual numbers on a balance sheet. We're going to explore the hidden and, often unintentional economic impacts that a business can have. We'll be using the development in Lesung as our real-world case study to really understand how a single project can send these positive shockwaves through an entire community. And this isn't just about feeling good or corporate social responsibility. This is about fundamentally understanding the total value your business creates.
So let's just start with a really foundational question for any of you going into business leadership. Can your big investment, let's say it's a brand new luxury resort, can it create real actual value for people who are never going to be your customers? People who will never book a room, never eat in your restaurant, never even set foot on the property? Now, it might seem a little counterintuitive, but microeconomic theory gives us a really clear yes. And for any manager thinking strategically, the key is to understand how that value gets created.
So the concept that explains all this is called a positive externality. The textbook definition is right there, a benefit for a third party who isn't part of the main economic deal. But in plain English, think of it as an unintended positive spillover. The really crucial part here is that these benefits are external to the market. What that means is the person getting the benefit, like a local farmer using a brand new road, they don't pay the resort for it. And the resort doesn't get a check in the mail for that specific benefit. It all happens outside of that direct you buy, I sell transaction.
Okay, so let's dive into the first and honestly the most obvious of these positive spillovers, the job creation ripple. This is where that initial investment first makes contact with the local community. It's direct, you can measure it, and it's really the first wave that all the other effects are going to flow from.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that this simple idea points to a much bigger economic chain reaction, something we call the multiplier effect. You see, any manager can count the number of chefs and cleaners on their payroll. That's easy. But a true strategist understands that every single salary you pay out is not the end of the story. That money gets spent at local shops, which then have to hire more people, who then turn around and spend their salaries. The direct hiring is just the catalyst. It's not the end of the story.
Let's just break this flow down. Step 1, boom, the resort opens. Step 2, direct hiring. This is your core staff. But now, look at Step 3. This is the positive externality in action. Your resort's guests, they create all this new demand for local guides, boat operators, and of course, people supplying the food. Now, from a manager's point of view, this isn't just a happy accident you can ignore. It's a critical dependency that actually introduces risk into your business. I mean, the quality of those local guides directly impacts your guest's experience. So a smart manager doesn't just hope for the best, they turn that externality into a strategic partnership, maybe by offering training programs to local suppliers to make sure the quality and reliability are there.
All right, let's move on to the next ripple, which a lot of the time is a direct result of the first one. Once you have a business up and running, employing people, suddenly the need for better infrastructure becomes crystal clear. We're talking about those big, expensive investments that literally pave the way for more business. And this is where the line between private benefit and public good starts to get really interesting.
This comparison is just fantastic because it illustrates a concept related to what's called the free rider problem. Now, usually we talk about that in a negative way, someone benefiting from something they didn't pay for. But here we see it in reverse. The whole community is free riding, in a good way, on investments made mainly for the resort. So if you're a manager, this opens up some really strategic conversations. When you're lobbying the government for that toll road, your economic case isn't just about tourist dollars. It's about the total regional benefit, including that boost to local agriculture. This shared value can completely justify public-private partnerships, which turns a potential side effect into a planned win-win outcome.
This quote from the source material really gets to the heart of it. The key phrase here, the one you should really be focusing on, is increase in local productivity. That isn't just a nice phrase. It is a quantifiable economic benefit. It means less food spoils on the way to market, it means lower transportation costs, and it means higher profits for farmers. The true social return on that road includes the sum of all of these external benefits. So for a manager pitching this project, being able to put a number on that, for example, by estimating how much money local farmers will save, that makes for a way more powerful business case.
And now for our third and final ripple. This one, it's maybe the most abstract, but I think in a lot of ways it's the most profound. We're moving from concrete and steel to something much deeper, the preservation of heritage, of identity. We are talking about the cultural ripple effect.
Let's really analyze the economics behind this. So, as an economy modernizes, traditional arts can sometimes decline because, well, they just aren't economically competitive. A young person might choose a job in a factory over learning a traditional dance because the factory offers a steady paycheck,
It's a rational choice. But then tourists show up and they're looking for authentic cultural experiences. All of a sudden, that traditional dance isn't just history anymore, it's a marketable performance. This new demand creates a direct financial reason to preserve and pass on these incredible cultural skills.
The really important thing to see here is the difference between the transaction and the externality. The transaction is super simple, money for a performance. But the externality, that's a benefit that the entire community gets to enjoy, even people who don't perform. Their shared cultural heritage is kept alive. So from a manager's perspective, this is a huge strategic opportunity. A really savvy resort manager wouldn't just let this happen passively. They would actively cultivate it, right? They'd integrate cultural performances right into the guest experience. By doing that, you've internalized the externality right into your business model, and it becomes a unique selling point that no competitor can easily copy.
Okay, so we've analyzed these three ripples: jobs, infrastructure, and culture. Let's take a step back and pull it all together. Why does understanding this really complex web of externalities actually matter for you as a future business leader?
So let's recap the big takeaways from our three ripples. The job ripple showed us that a company's real economic footprint goes way beyond its own payroll, all thanks to that multiplier effect. The infrastructure ripple showed us how private investment can actually create public wealth, letting communities benefit from new roads and clean water. And the cultural ripple revealed how market forces, which are often seen as a threat to tradition, can, paradoxically, become its greatest savior. When you put it all together, you see that understanding these externalities isn't just a side issue. It's absolutely essential for smart, sustainable, and responsible business planning.
And all of this brings us to our final and maybe our most important question. We're all trained to measure success in terms of profit, of ROI, of shareholder value. But if the most significant positive impacts of a project are these unintentional spillovers, these externalities, are we even using the right metrics? How should a manager, or a government, or an investor truly measure a project's total success? This question, it really challenges the very foundation of how we think about the role and the responsibilities of business in our society.